The morning sun cast long shadows across the ancient stone plaza where our diplomatic envoy had gathered. I cleared my throat and adjusted my collar for what must have been the 10th time in as many minutes. As the youngest member of the delegation and the only one with any knowledge of the old Aryan tongue, the burden of first contact fell squarely on my shoulders. "Kalen," Ambassador Valerius whispered beside me, his weathered face tight with concern. "Remember your training. Clear pronunciation. No sudden movements. These Aryans are unpredictable at best, barbaric at worst." I nodded, though my stomach churned like a tempest. The distant beating of wings grew louder as the Aryan, welcoming party descended from their mountain stronghold. Their massive wingspans stretched impressively against the blue sky, each feather catching the light in mesmerizing ripples of color. My years spent hunched over ancient texts in the Imperial University seemed woefully inadequate preparation for this moment. I had memorized every declension, every honorific, every ritual greeting described in our fragmentary records of Aryan culture. But nothing could have prepared me for their physical presence, the sheer power and grace they exhibited as they touched down on the stone courtyard before us. Their leader stepped forward, a towering figure with rust-colored wings and intricate golden armor. He regarded our delegation with piercing yellow eyes. "Now, Kalen," Valerius urged, a bead of sweat trailing down his temple. I stepped forward on unsteady legs, clearing my throat once more. Asterisk esteemed Aryans, children of the cloudless sky. Asterisk. I began in their ancient tongue, careful to emphasize the complex tonal shifts. Asterisk, we come in peace and mutual respect to offer our hands in friendship, and asterisk. A gust of wind nearly knocked me backward as a blur of movement descended from above. Before I could register what was happening, strong arms wrapped around my waist, and my feet left the ground with such force that my spectacles nearly flew off my face. "Asterisk, you are the one." "Asterisk," a female voice declared, fierce and wild in my ear as we shot upward at a terrifying speed. The plaza shrank below us, Ambassador Valerius's outraged face becoming a tiny, pale oval as the female Aryan carried me higher with powerful beats of her midnight blue wings. Asterisk, the one whose words pierced the veil between worlds. Asterisk, she continued, tightening her grip as I struggled in panic. Asterisk, the one foretold. Mine to claim, mine to keep. Asterisk. What? No. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. I shouted back at her language, my words whipped away by the rushing wind. But the Aryan warrior, for she was clearly a warrior, given the sleek leather armor and the wicked-looking short sword strapped to her thigh, only laughed, a sound like silver bells in the wind. Asterisk, I am Lyra, daughter of storms, and you are my destined one. Asterisk, she declared as we soared through a bank of clouds. Asterisk claimed in the eternal sky, as the ancient ways demand. Asterisk. And that was how I, Kalen Thorne, junior linguist and the most cautious member of the Imperial Diplomatic Corps, was abducted in mid-sentence by a winged Beastwoman who declared me her mate somewhere between the earth and the heavens. The flight seemed to last both an eternity and no time at all. My initial terror gave way to a numb acceptance as the Aryan woman, Lyra, carried me through cloud formations and air currents with masterful ease. Eventually, the mist parted to reveal a breathtaking sight, a city built into the side of a colossal mountain peak, with terraced dwellings, hanging gardens, and graceful spires that seemed to defy gravity itself. Asterisk welcome to Skyhold, nest of the Stormclaw tribe. Asterisk, Lyra announced as we approached. Asterisk, your new home. Asterisk. She landed with surprising gentleness on a wide stone platform jutting from the mountainside. My legs promptly buckled beneath me as they touched solid ground again. You can't do this, I protested, finding my voice at last as I scrambled to my feet, trying to maintain some dignity. I am an imperial diplomat. This is an act of war. Lyra tilted her head, studying me with curious violet eyes. Her wings folded gracefully behind her back, and I could now see her features clearly for the first time. Her face was startlingly human, save for the slight point to her ears and the subtle feather-like markings that framed her eyes. She was beautiful in a wild, predatory way that made my heart race for reasons I didn't care to examine. War? She repeated, frowning. No. This is sacred tradition. You spoke the claiming words in the ancient tongue. Your soul called to mine. Claiming words? I was delivering a diplomatic greeting. The absurdity of the situation was starting to overcome my fear. Before Lyra could respond, a chorus of winged beats announced the arrival of other Aryans. They landed in a semicircle around us, their expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. An older female, with steel-gray wings, stepped forward, her eyes narrowed as she assessed me. So, this is the human you've claimed, Lyra. She asked, circling me slowly. He seems frail. His strength is not in his body, Elder Alara. Lyra replied confidently. It is in his mind and his tongue. He speaks our sacred language with the accent of the ancients, just as the prophecy foretold. Elder Alara's eyes widened slightly. She barked an order, and a young male Aryan darted away, returning moments later with an ancient scroll. The elder unrolled it carefully, examining the faded symbols before looking back at me with newfound interest. What is your name? Human. She asked in the ancient tongue. Kalen, I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. Kalen Thorne, linguistic attaché to the Imperial Diplomatic Corps. A murmur ran through the gathered Aryans. Elder Alara exchanged significant glances with several others before nodding slowly. Colon. She pronounced carefully. Wind speaker. It is as written. The one who bridges worlds will come with the name of Wind. This was spiraling out of control. There's been a mistake, I insisted. My name is just a name. I was chosen for this mission because I studied your language. That's all. And how did you learn our ancient tongue? Wind speaker. Elder Alara asked. No human has spoken it in 1,000 years. I adjusted my spectacles nervously. From fragments. Old texts. I've dedicated my academic career to understanding lost languages. Another ripple of excitement passed through the crowd. Lyra's face broke into a triumphant smile. You see? She said to the others. He uncovers what is hidden. He gives voice to the silent past. Just as the prophecy states. I was about to protest again when a deep, challenging voice cut through the murmurs. This is absurd. A massive Aryan male with russet wings and a face scarred from battle pushed through the crowd. You would have us believe this weak human is the fulfillment of prophecy? He can barely stand. Watch your tongue. Forelag. Lyra growled, stepping protectively in front of me. The signs are clear. The male warrior, Forelag, sneered. Clear to you, perhaps. I see only a human spy, cleverly trained to mimic our sacred tongue. A ploy to infiltrate Skyhold. Several Aryans nodded in agreement. Elder Alara raised her hand for silence. The truth will reveal itself in time. She declared. Until then, the human remains under Lyra's protection, as is her right as claimant. He will be given 3 cycles of the moon to prove his worth or be returned to his kind. Forelag scowled, but made no further protest. The crowd began to disperse, many casting curious glances my way before taking flight from the platform. When we were relatively alone, I turned to Lyra. 3 cycles of the moon? That's 3 months. I can't stay here that long. My delegation will think I've been killed. Lyra's expression softened slightly. I will send a message to your people, explaining that you are safe and participating in a cultural exchange. It is not entirely untrue. Cultural exchange? I sputtered. You kidnapped me. I claimed you. She corrected. Asterisk, there's a difference. Come, wind speaker. You must be hungry after our flight. I will show you to my nest, and we can begin your introduction to our ways. Asterisk. Without waiting for a response, she took my hand and led me through an archway into the mountain itself. I followed, partly because I had no choice in this precarious, unfamiliar environment, and partly because, despite everything, I found myself intrigued. After all, no human scholar had ever been granted such intimate access to Aryan culture. My name is Kalen, I muttered as we walked. Not wind speaker. Lyra glanced back at me with an amused smile. Asterisk for now, perhaps. Names have power here, wind speaker. You may discover yours holds more truth than you know. Asterisk. The next several days passed in a bewildering blur. Lyra's nest, as she called it, was a spacious dwelling carved into the mountainside, with open balconies that overlooked dizzying drops. The interior was surprisingly comfortable, furnished with woven rugs, cushions, and low wooden tables. The walls were adorned with intricate tapestries depicting Aryan history and mythology. I was given a separate sleeping chamber, which Lyra explained was part of the claiming tradition. Asterisk, the claimed and claimant must dwell together, but remain separate until the bond is acknowledged by both. Asterisk, she had told me with a formality that suggested she was quoting some ancient text. This small concession to my privacy was appreciated, though escape remained impossible, unless I suddenly developed wings or a death wish for jumping from mountain heights. Lyra proved to be a patient, if sometimes exasperating, guide to Aryan culture. Each morning, she would take me on carefully supervised flights around Skyhold, her strong arms secure around my waist as she showed me the layout of the mountain city. While terrifying at first, I gradually began to appreciate these journeys, even finding a certain exhilaration in soaring through the crisp mountain air. Asterisk, the central spire houses our council chambers. Asterisk, she explained during one such flight. Asterisk, the eastern terraces are for training young warriors. The western caves hold our most sacred artifacts and historical records. Asterisk. That caught my attention. Records? What kind of records? Lyra seemed pleased by my interest. Asterisk, scrolls, tablets, carved histories going back to the Great Sundering, when sky and earth were divided. Asterisk. I would very much like to see them, I said carefully. She gave me an appraising look. Asterisk, perhaps. When Elder Alara deems you trustworthy. Asterisk. In the afternoons, I was usually left in the company of various Aryans who seemed tasked with teaching me their ways. Rorik, a young warrior with silver-tipped wings, showed me how Aryans crafted their lightweight armor and weapons. He was friendlier than most, curious about human customs and technology. Asterisk, is it true humans build great metal birds to fly in? Asterisk, he asked one day as he demonstrated the art of weaving flight harnesses. Yes, we call them airships, I replied, though they're nothing like your natural flight. They're slower, noisier, and require enormous amounts of fuel. Rorik seemed fascinated. Asterisk, yet you build them anyway, despite having no wings. That shows determination. Asterisk. It was a small compliment, but it warmed me nonetheless. Not all Aryans were so accepting of my presence. Forlag and his followers made their disdain obvious, often muttering asterisk groundling asterisk or asterisk wingless one asterisk when I passed. Twice, I found my path deliberately blocked by hostile warriors, only to have them reluctantly disperse when Lyra or Elder Alara appeared. The hardest part of my strange captivity wasn't the physical challenges or even the constant scrutiny. It was the uncertainty. Had Ambassador Valerius assumed me dead? Was the Imperial Diplomatic Corps planning a rescue, or worse, a retaliatory strike? The thought of violence erupting because of my abduction filled me with dread. I raised these concerns to Lyra one evening as we shared a meal on her balcony. The sun was setting, painting the clouds below us in shades of gold and crimson. Asterisk, I told you. I sent a message. Asterisk, she said, tearing a piece of roast mountain fowl with her strong fingers. Asterisk, one of our traders who deals with humans carried my words to your ambassador. Asterisk, and said what, exactly? Sorry we kidnapped your linguist. but a prophecy told us to do it. Lyra frowned. Asterisk, I explained that you are participating in an ancient cultural exchange program that will benefit both our peoples. Asterisk, I nearly choked on my wine. And you think they believe that? Asterisk, humans believe what serves their interests. Asterisk, she said with a shrug. Asterisk, your ambassador seeks a treaty with our people. Now, he has a representative living among us. Is that not what diplomats desire? Asterisk. Her logic, while twisted, wasn't entirely wrong. Still, I couldn't imagine Valerius calmly accepting my abduction as a fortuitous diplomatic development. I should write to him myself, I insisted. Assure him that I'm unharmed and voluntarily engaged in this cultural exchange. Lyra studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Asterisk, I will arrange it. But first, there's a gathering tonight. The new moon ceremony. You will attend with me. Asterisk. Later that evening, I found myself in the great central cavern of Skyhold, surrounded by hundreds of Aryans. They gathered around a massive circular fire pit where blue flames danced in mesmerizing patterns. The heat was intense, yet none seemed bothered by it. Lyra had insisted I wear Aryan clothing for the ceremony, a sleeveless tunic of finely woven fabric that left my arms bare and lightweight trousers cut to allow freedom of movement. I felt exposed and conspicuous without my familiar imperial attire. Asterisk, stand tall. Asterisk, Lyra whispered as we entered. Asterisk, you are my claimed one. Show no fear. Asterisk. Easier said than done. Every Aryan I seemed to follow us as Lyra guided me to a place near the fire. Elder Alara stood on a raised stone platform, her arms spread wide, wings partially extended in what I recognized as a formal posture of blessing. Asterisk, on this moonless night, when the veil between past and future thins, asterisk, the elder intoned. Asterisk, we gather to honor the ancient ways and seek guidance for the path ahead. Asterisk. The ceremony that followed was both beautiful and alien. Aryans took turns stepping into the ring of blue fire, their voices raised in a haunting chant that seemed to make the very mountain vibrate. Some performed intricate aerial dances above the flames, their wings creating patterns of shadow and light against the cavern ceiling. What are they saying? I whispered to Lyra, captivated despite my lingering anxiety. The chant, it's not in the ancient tongue I studied. Asterisk, it is. The song of remembrance. Asterisk, she replied softly. Asterisk, even older than the language you know. It tells the story of our creation, how the first Aryans were born of the union between storm and stone. Asterisk. I listened more carefully, trying to discern patterns in the unfamiliar syllables. There is something mathematically beautiful about the rise and fall of their voices, something that spoke to my linguist's heart. The ceremony reached its climax when Elder Alara called for the seeking, apparently a ritualized form of divination. Various Aryans stepped forward to ask questions of the flames, watching intently as the fire shifted and danced in response. Then, without warning, Forlag stepped into the circle, his massive wings casting a shadow over the assembly. Asterisk, I seek truth about the human among us. Asterisk, he declared loudly, staring directly at me with unconcealed hostility. Asterisk, is he truly the wind speaker of prophecy, or a spy sent to weaken us from within? Asterisk. A tense silence fell over the gathering. Lyra stiffened beside me, her hand moving instinctively toward her weapon. Elder Alara frowned, but made no move to intervene. Forlag threw something into the flames, some kind of powder that caused the fire to flare brilliantly. He stared intently into the blaze, then smiled with grim satisfaction. Asterisk, the flames show a divided sky. Asterisk, he announced. Asterisk, the human brings discord. His presence tears the clouds. Asterisk. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. Lyra stepped forward, her posture rigid with anger. Asterisk, you see what you wish to see. Forlag. Asterisk, she challenged. Asterisk, let another interpret. Asterisk. Before anyone could respond, a distant sound echoed through the cavern. A horn blast, urgent and alarming. The gathering erupted in confusion as a young Aryan scout burst into the chamber, his wings still spread from his hasty flight. Asterisk Gorgons! Asterisk, he cried. Asterisk, the scale skins attack the lower terraces. They've brought their earth-shaking machines. Asterisk. In an instant, the ceremonial atmosphere transformed. Warriors rushed to collect weapons. Elders herded the young, and elderly toward deeper chambers within a mountain. Lyra gripped my arm. Asterisk, stay close to me. Asterisk, she ordered, all formality gone from her voice. What's happening? Who are Gorgons? I asked, struggling to keep up as she led me swiftly through the chaotic crowd. Asterisk, reptilian raiders from the lowlands. Asterisk, she explained tersely. Asterisk, ancient enemies. They covet our mountain crystals for their strange machines. Asterisk. We emerged onto a wide observation platform where several Aryan warriors had gathered, peering down at the battle unfolding on the lower terraces. Even from this height, I could see the attackers, enormous scaled humanoids wielding bizarre contraptions that spewed fire and smoke. The distant sounds of combat rose on the wind, the battle cries of Aryans, the hissing roars of the reptilian attackers, and the ominous rumble of machinery. Asterisk, they've never attacked with such numbers before. Asterisk, one warrior observed grimly. Asterisk, and those new weapons. Asterisk. Asterisk, Forlag was right. Asterisk, another said, casting a suspicious glance my way. Asterisk, discord comes with a human. Asterisk. Lyra bristled. Asterisk, this is not Kalen's doing. The Gorgons have grown bolder over many seasons. Asterisk. Despite her defense, I could see doubt creeping into the expressions of those around us. And truthfully, I couldn't help wondering myself, was it mere coincidence that this attack came so soon after my arrival? Or had my abduction somehow triggered this conflict? Before I could pursue that troubling thought, a massive explosion rocked the lower levels. Flames and debris shot skyward as a section of terrace collapsed. Asterisk, the eastern crystal vault. Asterisk, someone cried. Asterisk, they've breached it. Asterisk. Lyra's face hardened with resolve. Asterisk, I must join the defense. Rorik. Asterisk, she called to the young warrior. Asterisk, take Kalen to the inner sanctum. Keep him safe. Asterisk. Wait. I grabbed her arm as she prepared to leap from the platform. You can't just leave me. What if? She cut me off by doing something completely unexpected. She pulled me close and pressed her forehead against mine in what I would later learn was a deeply intimate Aryan gesture. Asterisk, I claimed you. Asterisk, she said fiercely. Asterisk, that means I will return for you. Always asterisk. Then she was gone, diving into the smoky chaos below with a dozen other warriors at her side. Rorik awkwardly took my arm, looking nearly as uncomfortable as I felt. Asterisk, come, Windspeaker. The inner chambers are secure. Asterisk. As he led me deeper into the mountain, away from the sounds of battle, I found myself looking back, my heart pounding with a fear that had nothing to do with my own safety and everything to do with the warrior woman who had carried me into the sky. Hours passed like years as I waited in the inner sanctum with the Aryan elders, children, and those too old or injured to fight. The chamber was vast and adorned with luminous crystals that provided a soft, blue-tinged light. Under other circumstances, I would have been fascinated by the ancient carvings that covered the walls, apparent records of Aryan history dating back centuries. But my attention remained fixed on the sealed entrance, straining to hear any news from the battle raging outside. Rorik stood guard nearby, clearly torn between his duty to protect me and his desire to join his fellow warriors. Elder Alera moved among her people, offering words of comfort and strength. When she approached us, her expression was grave but composed. Asterisk, the Gorgons have never mounted such a coordinated attack. Asterisk, she said, her voice pitched low for our ears alone. Asterisk, something has changed among them. Asterisk, do you also believe I'm somehow responsible? I asked bluntly. The elder studied me with those penetrating eyes. Asterisk, the winds of change began blowing before your arrival, Windspeaker. But your presence may have hastened the storm. Asterisk, I don't understand. Asterisk, nor do I fully. But prophecies rarely unfold as we expect. Asterisk, she glanced at the sealed doors. Asterisk, I sense Lyra chose better than even she knew when she claimed you. Asterisk. Before I could press for clarification, a commotion at the entrance drew our attention. The massive stone doors ground open to admit a group of bloodied warriors. My heart leaped when I saw Lyra among them, though she limped slightly and her left wing drooped at an unnatural angle. I rushed to her side without thinking. You're hurt. She seemed surprised by my concern, but offered a weary smile. Asterisk, it is nothing serious. The battle goes poorly, however. The Gorgons have new weapons, devices that disrupt our wind currents and make flight difficult near them. Asterisk. Elder Ilera frowned. Asterisk, how could they develop such technology? The Scaleskins have always been clever with machines, but this exceeds their known capabilities. Asterisk. A disturbing thought occurred to me. These weapons, do they resemble anything human-made? The warriors exchanged glances. One of them, a battle-scarred female with auburn wings, nodded slowly. Asterisk, there is a similarity to the air cannons we've observed on human airships. Asterisk, she admitted. Asterisk, but more advanced, more focused. Asterisk. My blood ran cold. If the Gorgons possessed enhanced versions of human technology, it suggested some form of collaboration or theft. Either way, it complicated an already volatile situation. Asterisk, we've secured the inner mountain, but they control the lower terraces. Asterisk. Lyra continued to report. Asterisk, they're using their earth movers to expand the access points. More of their forces arrive by the hour. Asterisk. Asterisk, and our casualties? Asterisk, Elder Ilera asked softly. Lyra's expression tightened. Asterisk, 23 injured. 7. Will not fly again. Asterisk. A somber silence fell over the assembly. I found myself studying the map carved into the nearest wall, a detailed depiction of Skyold Mountain and the surrounding territories. Something about the Gorgon strategy nagged at me. May I ask a question? I said, stepping toward the map. These access points they're expanding, are they all on the eastern face of the mountain? Lyra nodded, watching me curiously. In this section here, I continued, pointing to a particular area of the carving. What is this? Asterisk, the Great Cistern. Asterisk, answered the auburn-winged warrior. Asterisk, it collects rainwater and snowmelt for the entire mountain. Asterisk. The pieces suddenly connected in my mind. They're not just after the crystals. They're trying to control your water supply. This isn't a raid, it's a siege. The implications sank in quickly. The Aryans exchanged alarmed glances. Asterisk, if they corrupt or drain the cistern, the entire mountain would become uninhabitable within days. Asterisk, Elder Ilera said grimly. Forlag, who I hadn't noticed among the returned warriors, pushed forward. His magnificent wings were tattered at the edges, and a fresh scar crossed his cheek. Asterisk, how convenient that the human instantly recognizes their strategy. Asterisk, he growled. Asterisk, perhaps because he helped design it. Asterisk. I met his accusation steadily. I recognized it because of the basic military tactic taught in every Imperial Academy. Control the water, control the population. But there's something not adding up here. The Gorgons shouldn't have this level of strategic planning or technology. Asterisk, are you suggesting human involvement? Asterisk, Elder Ilera asked sharply. Not official involvement, I clarified quickly. But there are factions within the Empire who would benefit from disrupting diplomatic relations with your people. Arms dealers, crystal merchants who prefer the black market to regulated trade. Lyra's eyes widened with understanding. Asterisk, rogue, humans supplying the Gorgons with weapons and tactics in exchange for crystals. It explains the timing and the sudden leap in their capabilities. Asterisk. Asterisk, if true, this changes the nature of our defense. Asterisk, the auburn-winged warrior said. Asterisk, we've been fighting as if this were a typical Gorgon raid, swift and disorganized. We need to prepare for a prolonged conflict. Asterisk. Elder Ilera nodded thoughtfully, then. Turn to me. Asterisk, Windspeaker, you have insights into these human-inspired strategies. Will you share your knowledge to help us defend Skyhold? Asterisk. All eyes turned to me. I felt the weight of their scrutiny, The suspicion from some, the desperate hope from others. Forlag's skepticism was palpable, but even he seemed to recognize the value I might offer. In that moment, my path became clear. Whatever strange fate had brought me to this mountain, I couldn't stand by while Lyra and her people faced destruction, especially if human influence was partly to blame. I'll help in any way I can, I said firmly. But I need to understand your defensive capabilities, the mountain's layout, and anything you know about the Gorgon's past tactics. For the first time since my abduction, I saw respect dawn in the eyes of the Aryan warriors, even grudgingly in Forlags. Lyra straightened despite her injuries, her violet eyes bright with renewed determination. Asterisk, then let us plan our counterattack. Wind Speaker. Together, asterisk. The next several hours were a flurry of activity as I worked with the Aryan War Council to develop a defense strategy. Their aerial combat techniques were impressive but had always relied on their superior mobility and height advantage. Advantages the new Gorgon weapons were specifically designed to neutralize. You need to fight asymmetrically, I explained, pointing to various sections of the detailed mountain model they had constructed. Small, swift strikes from unexpected angles. Hit their supply lines here and here, where the terrain makes it difficult to deploy their air cannons. Rorik, who had joined the planning session, frowned in concentration. Asterisk, but our traditional combat formations require open sky. The narrow passes would limit our wing movements. Asterisk. Exactly, I said, which is why you'll go on foot. My suggestion was met with shocked silence. Aryans considered ground combat beneath them, both literally and figuratively. Asterisk, you want us to fight like groundlings? Asterisk, Forlag asked, clearly offended. I want you to survive, I countered. The Gorgons expect you to attack from above, where their weapons can target you. They won't be prepared for Aryans moving through the underbrush and scaling the cliff faces. Lyra, who had been quietly listening, suddenly nodded. Asterisk, like the night hunt of our ancestors, before we became solely creatures of the open sky. Asterisk. Yes, I latched onto the cultural reference. Exactly like that. Use your heritage, your connection to the mountain itself. Elder Alara smiled faintly. Asterisk, the Wind Speaker, reminds us of what we have forgotten. Perhaps this is part of why he was sent to us. Asterisk. I chose not to debate this sent to us interpretation, focusing instead on the practical details of the plan. By dawn, we had organized 3 strike teams, one to target the Gorgon supply caravan, one to disable their earth-moving machinery, and one to secure the access points to the Great Cistern. Lyra, despite my objections, insisted on leading the cistern team herself. Asterisk, my wing will heal. Asterisk, she said dismissively when I pointed out her injury. Asterisk, and the cistern tunnels require someone familiar with their every turn. Asterisk. I wanted to argue further, but the determination in her eyes told me it would be futile. Instead, I surprised myself by saying, "Then I'm coming with you." Asterisk, absolutely not. Asterisk, she replied instantly. Asterisk, you are not a warrior. Asterisk. No, but I understand the weapons they're using better than any of you. If they've set up the air cannons inside the tunnels, you'll need someone who knows their vulnerabilities. Forlag, unexpectedly, supported me. Asterisk, the human is right. As much as it pains me to admit it, his knowledge could prove decisive. Asterisk. After further debate, it was settled. I would accompany Lyra's team, though under strict orders to remain behind the warriors during any actual combat. As the council dispersed to prepare, Lyra pulled me aside, her expression unusually solemn. Asterisk, you surprise me. Kalen, asterisk, she said, using my actual name for once instead of Wind Speaker. Asterisk, few humans would risk themselves for people who had taken them captive. Asterisk. I shrugged, uncomfortable with her scrutiny. I'm not doing it just for your people. If these weapons are being supplied by human factions, then this conflict could spread far beyond Skyhold. Besides, I added with a small smile, you claimed me, remember? I'm just living up to my responsibilities. Something flickered in her eyes. Amusement, warmth, and perhaps something deeper. Asterisk, indeed you are. Asterisk, she murmured. Asterisk, perhaps the prophecy spoke truly after all. Asterisk. Before I could inquire about the details of this prophecy, she kept referencing. A horn sounded, signaling the preparation for departure. Lyra straightened. Once more the warrior commander. Asterisk, gather your strength, claimed one. Asterisk, she said, the formality returning to her tone. Asterisk, the path ahead will test us both. Asterisk. Dawn hadn't yet broken when our small team, 6 Aryan warriors, including Lyra and myself, slipped out through a narrow crevice high on the western face of the mountain. This side of Skyhold remained free of Gorgon patrols, likely because its sheer cliffs and strong crosswinds made it nearly impassable. Nearly, but not entirely. Lyra led us along a precarious path that seemed to materialize beneath her confident steps. The Aryans moved with natural grace despite being earthbound, while I struggled to keep pace, grateful for each steadying hand extended when my footing faltered. Asterisk, the cistern access is 2 leagues around the southern spur. Asterisk, Lyra whispered as we paused in the shelter of a wind-twisted pine. Asterisk, we must move swiftly but silently. The Gorgons have scouts in the lower valleys. Asterisk. I nodded, tried to ignore the burning in my legs and lungs. Imperial diplomats weren't typically trained for mountain warfare, and my body was making that painfully clear. One of the warriors, a sharp-eyed female named Sora, suddenly raised her hand for silence. We froze as she pointed downslope, where a flicker of movement caught my eye. A Gorgon scout, its scale hide blending with the rocky terrain. The reptilian figure paused, lifting its snout to the air as if scenting for prey. None of us moved. Even our breathing seemed suspended as the scout surveyed the slope. After an agonizing minute, it continued on its path, disappearing into a ravine. Asterisk, they're expanding their perimeter. Asterisk, Lyra murmured. Asterisk, we must adjust our route. Asterisk. The adjustment meant scaling an almost vertical cliff face that the Aryans navigated with disturbing ease, using their powerful arm muscles, developed for flight, to pull themselves upward. I followed with considerably less grace, silently thanking my childhood self for the hours spent climbing trees in my family's orchard. By midday, we had circled behind the main Gorgon encampment. From our vantage point on a rocky outcrop, I could see the full extent of their operation. Dozens of the reptilian warriors moving purposefully among strange mechanical contraptions. The largest of these was a drilling apparatus that belched black smoke as it bored into the mountainside. Asterisk, the cistern tunnels must be just beyond that ridge. Asterisk, Lyra said, her voice tight with concern. Asterisk, if they breach the main chamber. Asterisk. I studied the scene, focusing on the devices scattered throughout the camp. Those are definitely modified Imperial air cannons, I confirmed grimly. But look there, the power sources are different. More compact, more powerful. Asterisk, can they be disabled? Asterisk, asked Talon, the oldest warrior in our group, his once golden wings now streaked with gray. Yes, but it would require getting close. Each unit has a regulator crystal that controls the energy flow. Remove it, and the whole system becomes unstable. Lyra's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Asterisk, then our task is twofold. Secure the cistern entrance and disable their weapons. Asterisk. We waited until dusk, when the Gorgon camp became a silhouette of fires and shadows against the darkening sky. The plan was relatively straightforward. 3 warriors would create a diversion on the northern edge of the camp, while Lyra, Talon, and I would slip in from the south to reach the cistern entrance. What we hadn't anticipated was the efficiency of the Gorgon sentries. We'd barely begun our approach when a harsh cry rang out, followed by the distinctive whine of an air cannon powering up. Asterisk down! Asterisk, Lyra shouted, shoving me roughly behind a boulder moments before a blast of compressed air tore through the space where we'd stood. The night erupted into chaos. From a northern edge of the camp came the planned diversion, a series of small explosives that the Aryans had crafted from mountain crystals and combustible resins. But the element of surprise was lost, and the Gorgons responded with coordinated precision that confirmed my worst fears about their advanced training. We need to move now, while they're focused on the explosions, I urged as another air cannon blast shook the ground nearby. Lyra nodded grimly, her injured wing tucked tight against her back to prevent it from impeding her movement. Asterisk, stay between Talon and me. Run only where we run. Asterisk. We sprinted from the cover of the boulder, keeping low as we darted between patches of shadow. The Gorgon camp was in an uproar, reptilian warriors rushing to defend against the northern attack, while officers bellowed commands in their hissing language. We had almost reached the ridge overlooking the cistern tunnel when disaster struck. A Gorgon sentry, more alert than its comrades, spotted our movement and raised the alarm. 3 massive reptilians blocked our path, brandishing weapons that combined traditional spears with some kind of mechanical enhancement. Lyra and Talon moved with breathtaking coordination, drawing their short swords and engaging the enemies before I could even process what was happening. Despite her injury, Lyra fought with fluid grace, her blade, seeming to anticipate her opponent's moves. Talon was more methodical, his experience evident in his economic movements. But the third Gorgon charged directly at me. I stumbled backward, fumbling for the small dagger Lyra had insisted I carry. My diplomatic training had included basic self-defense, but nothing that prepared me for combat with a 7-foot reptilian warrior. Time seemed to slow as the Gorgon raised its spear, the mechanized tip glowing with an ominous blue light. I knew with cold certainty that I couldn't dodge in time. Then a blur of movement intercepted the attack. Lyra, somehow disengaging from her own opponent to throw herself between me and certain death. The Gorgon spear caught her in the shoulder, the impact throwing her against me. We both crashed to the ground as Talon roared in fury, redoubling his attack on the remaining enemies. Lyra, I cradled her as she struggled to rise, blood seeping from the wound in her shoulder. Why would you do that? I'm not worth. Worth saving. She finished, her voice strained but fierce. You are worth everything, Kaelin. I knew at the moment I heard you speak our ancient tongue. Before I could respond, more Gorgons appeared, converging on our position. Talon fell back to us, his sword dripping with greenish blood. We are outnumbered. He reported grimly. The cistern entrance is just beyond that ridge, but we cannot reach it now. Lyra struggled to her feet, leaning heavily against me. We cannot fail. Skyld depends on us. I looked frantically around, assessing our dire situation. The ridge was barely 50 yards away, but the path was now blocked by at least a dozen Gorgon warriors. Behind us, more were approaching from the main camp. We were trapped. Then my gaze fell on one of the air cannons positioned near the ridge. An idea, desperate and possibly suicidal, formed in my mind. I can create an opening, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But you'll need to get Lyra to the cistern entrance the moment the path clears. Talon studied me suspiciously. What do you intend? Human? Something very foolish, I admitted, but it might work. When you see the cannon turn toward the Gorgon line, be ready to move. Without waiting for further discussion, I broke away from them and sprinted not away from the danger, but directly toward the nearest air cannon. Shouts of alarm rose behind me, both from the Gorgons and from Lyra, but I focused solely on reaching the machine before I could be intercepted. The cannon was unmanned, its operators having joined the general defense. I slid behind the controls, which were indeed modified from Imperial designs, but recognizable enough. The power crystal glowed bright red at the heart of the mechanism, far more potent than anything I'd seen in Imperial weapons. Gorgon warriors spotted me and charged, but they were seconds too late. I swung the cannon around, aiming not at my attackers, but at the ground before the Gorgon line blocking the ridge. With a quick adjustment to maximize power and a silent prayer to whatever gods might be watching, I fired. The blast was far more powerful than I'd anticipated. A shockwave of compressed air tore through the earth, sending Gorgons and debris flying in all directions. The cannon itself shuddered violently, the control panel sparking as the overtaxed crystal began to crack. Now, I shouted to Talon and Lyra, gesturing wildly toward the temporarily cleared path. Run! Talon hesitated only a moment before half-carrying Lyra toward the ridge. I abandoned the destabilizing cannon and raced after them, the ground beneath my feet still trembling from the impact. We reached the cistern entrance, a narrow cave mouth partially concealed by fallen rocks, just as the cannon behind us exploded in a blast of energy that knocked several pursuing Gorgons off their feet. Inside the tunnel, cool darkness enveloped us. Talon produced a small crystal that emanated a soft blue glow, illuminating rough-hewn walls that dripped with moisture. The main chamber is a quarter league inward. Lyra gasped, clutching her wounded shoulder. We must hurry. The Gorgons will not be deterred for long. You're injured, I protested. You need medical attention. She fixed me with a steely gaze. Later. Mission first. I couldn't help but admire her determination, even as I worried about the severity of her wound. We pressed deeper into the tunnel, the sounds of pursuit fading behind us. The passage widened gradually, the ceiling rising until we entered a vast underground chamber where the soft plink of water echoed like distant music. The great cistern was more magnificent than I had imagined, a natural cathedral carved by water and time. The central pool stretched into shadows beyond the reach of our light, its surface mirror-smooth except where thin waterfalls trickled down from fissures in the cavern ceiling. The heart of Skyhold. Talon murmured, reverently. Without this water, our people could not survive on the mountain. Lyra staggered forward, her eyes scanning the chamber. We must secure the access points. There are 3 other entrances besides the one we used. I'll check this side, I offered, taking a smaller light crystal from Talon. You two rest for a moment. Before either could object, I move along the edge of the pool, examining the cavern walls for signs of additional tunnels. The chamber was eerily silent except for the water sounds and our own breathing. I had almost reached the far side when I noticed something disturbing, a faint greenish tinge to the water where a small stream entered the pool. Following it to its source, I discovered a narrow fissure where the discolored water seeped through. Lyra, I called, my voice echoing unervingly. I think they're trying to poison the water. She joined me more quickly than her injuries should have allowed, examining the green trickle with growing alarm. This is bad. She confirmed grimly. Gorgon venom. Slow-acting, but lethal in sufficient concentration. Can we block it somehow? She shook her head. Not from this side. The poison is coming from somewhere in the tunnel network beyond. A distant rumble interrupted our discussion, the unmistakable sound of the Gorgon's drilling machine. They're breaking through. Talon warned, his hand moving to his sword. From the eastern tunnel, by the sound. We need to collapse these tunnels, I said, thinking rapidly. Seal off the cistern from external access. That would also cut off water flow to parts of Skyhold. Lyra objected. Better ration water than poison water, I countered. Do you have any more of those crystal explosives? Talon produced several small devices from a pouch at his belt. Enough for 1, perhaps 2 tunnels. Focus on the one with the poison first, then the one where we hear the drilling, I decided. We'll handle the others later. As Talon set the explosives at the mouth of the contaminated fissure, I outlined a more comprehensive plan. Once we've secured the immediate threat, we need to alert the other teams. The Gorgons will be vulnerable if they've committed significant forces to this cistern operation. Lyra nodded weakly, her face alarmingly pale in the crystal light. You think like a war chief, Kalen. I think like someone who wants to survive, I corrected, growing increasingly concerned about her condition. And wants you to survive as well. The explosives detonated with a muffled boom, collapsing the fissure in a shower of rock and dust. The green trickle stopped immediately, though I knew the poison already in the pool would remain a problem. The drilling sound grew louder, accompanied now by the hissing voices of Gorgon warriors. We hastily retreated to the opposite side of the chamber, where Talon placed the remaining explosives at the narrowest point of the eastern tunnel. Asterisk on my signal. Run for the far exit. Asterisk, he instructed, his aged face set with grim determination. Asterisk, I will trigger the collapse once you are clear. Asterisk. We go together, Lyra insisted, though she could barely stand without support. Talon smiled sadly, placing a weathered hand on her good shoulder. Asterisk, no, young one. My wings have carried me far enough. It is time for the wind to take me home. Asterisk. Before either of us could protest, he shoved us roughly toward the exit tunnel. The gesture saved our lives, as at that moment, the eastern passage erupted with Gorgon warriors, their weapons raised and firing. I half-dragged, half-carried Lyra into the exit tunnel as chaos erupted behind us. The last glimpse I had of Talon showed him standing proudly at the edge of the pool, wings fully extended for the first time since we'd begun the mission. He looked, in that moment, not like an aged warrior, but like a figure from legend, defiant and magnificent. The explosion that followed shook the entire mountain, dust and debris chasing us down the tunnel as we fled. Whether by design or chance, the blast was powerful enough to collapse not just the eastern passage, but a significant portion of the cavern ceiling as well. Talon, Lyra murmured brokenly as we emerged onto a narrow ledge overlooking the western valleys. He sacrificed himself. He saved Skyhold, I said gently. He saved all of us. She nodded, tears streaming freely down her dust-covered face. Then her legs gave way, and she collapsed into my arms, the combined effects of her injuries and exhaustion finally overwhelming her. With the sunrise painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, I gathered the fierce warrior who had once carried me off in mid-sentence in my arms and began the long journey back to Skyhold, determined that her sacrifice, and Talon's, would not be in vain. Lyra's recovery was slow but steady. The Gorgon weapon had left a wound that resisted the Aryans' traditional healing methods, but their skilled healers eventually developed a treatment combining mountain herbs with crystal energy that gradually restored her strength. I rarely left her side during those difficult days, dividing my time between assisting with her care and working with the Aryan War Council. The battle for Skyhold had turned in our favor after the defense of the cistern. The Gorgons, deprived of their primary objective and facing unexpected resistance from the ground-based Aryan strike teams, had withdrawn to regroup. It was during this respite that we confirmed my suspicions about human involvement. A captured Gorgon commander revealed, under questioning, that they had indeed been supplied with enhanced weapons and strategic advice by a consortium of human arms dealers, the same faction that had opposed the diplomatic mission I had been part of. This revelation changed the nature of the conflict. What had begun as my personal journey of captivity and cultural discovery had evolved into a complex political situation with implications for both Aryan and human societies. 2 weeks after the Cistern battle, with Lyra finally strong enough to attend council meetings, Elder Alara called a special assembly in the Great Cavern. The mood was solemn yet hopeful. The immediate threat had passed, but all knew that the Gorgons would return, perhaps with even more advanced weapons. Asterisk, we stand at a crossroads. Asterisk, Elder Alara announced to the gathered Aryans. Asterisk, 4 generations. We have kept ourselves apart from the affairs of humans and other groundling races. But recent events have shown that we can no longer remain isolated on our mountain. Asterisk. Murmurs of agreement and dissent rippled through the assembly. Many Aryans still viewed interaction with other races as beneath them, while others have begun to see the potential benefits of alliance. Asterisk, the Wind Speaker has proven himself a true friend to our people. Asterisk, the Elder continued, gesturing to where I sat beside Lyra. Asterisk, through his knowledge and courage, Skyhold stands undefeated. It is time we consider his original purpose here, a diplomatic exchange between our peoples. Asterisk. Forlag stepped forward, his once hostile demeanor notably softened. The battle had changed him, as it had changed all of us. Asterisk, I was wrong about you. Kalen Thorne. Asterisk, he admitted, using my full name for the first time. Asterisk, you have fought for Skyhold, as if born with wings. The council agrees that you should contact your human leaders. We would hear their proposals for alliance. Asterisk. The assembly erupted in discussion, but my attention was drawn to Lyra, whose expression had become unreadable. In the weeks of caring for her, something had shifted between us. The formal claimant and claimed relationship had evolved into something deeper, built on shared danger and growing respect. After the council dispersed, we walked slowly to Lyra's balcony, where the setting sun painted the clouds in fiery hues. For a long while, we simply stood side by side, watching the changing colors. Asterisk, you will return to your people now. Asterisk, she finally said, her voice carefully neutral. As an emissary, yes, I replied. Ambassador Valerius needs to understand what's happened here. The human involvement with the Gorgons, the potential for a meaningful alliance between our peoples. She nodded, her midnight blue wings rustling slightly. Asterisk, it is the right path. The wise path. Asterisk. But not the only path, I said, turning to face her fully. Lyra, when you carried me off that day, I thought my life was over. Instead, it was just beginning. Everything I've experienced here, the dangers, the discoveries, even the cultural misunderstandings, has changed me. I don't want to simply return to my old life, as if none of this happened. Her violet eyes widened slightly. Asterisk, what are you saying, Windspeaker? Asterisk. I'm saying that I need to go back temporarily to fulfill my diplomatic duty. But then, I took a deep breath, hardly believing what I was about to propose. Then I want to return to Skyhold. There's so much more for me to learn here. Your language, your history, your ways. And I hesitated, then pressed on. There's you. Asterisk me. Asterisk, she whispered, something vulnerable flickering across her usually confident features. You claimed me in midair, remember? I think it's time I claimed you back. For a moment, she seemed too stunned to respond. Then a smile broke across her face like sunrise, transforming her entire being. Asterisk, you wish to complete the bonding? Asterisk, she asked, hardly daring to believe it. I wish to try, I said honestly. I don't fully understand all your customs yet, but I know that what I feel for you is real. You're fierce and stubborn and occasionally terrifying, but also the most extraordinary person I've ever known. Lyra laughed, the sound like silver bells in the wind. Asterisk, you speak like a true diplomat, finding the perfect words. Asterisk. Not perfect, I demurred. Just true. She stepped closer, her wings partially extending in what I now recognized as a gesture of intimacy. Asterisk, my people have a saying. What is claimed in the sky cannot be broken on earth. I claimed you because I saw something in you, Kaelin, a spirit that matched my own, though wrapped in a very different form. Asterisk. And I thought you were just following some obscure prophecy. I teased gently. Asterisk, the prophecy spoke of a bridge between worlds. Asterisk, she admitted. Asterisk, but it did not tell me I would come to care so deeply for the bridge builder. Asterisk. With a tenderness that belied her warrior strength, she pressed her forehead against mine in the Aryan gesture of deepest affection. I brought my hands up to cradle her face, then kissed her in the human way, our different traditions blending into something new and wonderful. The following day, a small Aryan delegation accompanied me down the mountain to where the imperial encampment still maintained its diplomatic presence. Ambassador Valerius's expression upon seeing me, alive and conversing easily with the winged warriors he had once called barbaric, was something I would treasure for years to come. The negotiations that followed were complex but productive. The revelation of rogue human elements supplying the Gorgons created both a crisis and an opportunity. The Empire, eager to distance itself from these unauthorized arms dealers, proved receptive to establishing formal diplomatic and trade relations with Skyhold. 2 months later, I returned to the mountain city with a formal title, Imperial Liaison to the Aryan territories, and a personal mission. The bonding ceremony between Lyra and me took place at dawn, high above Skyhold, where the air was thin and the sky seemed close enough to touch. As we exchanged vows in both her language and mine, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us to this point. How a diplomatic mission interrupted by an impulsive abduction had led to understanding, alliance, and love. How the linguist's dream of studying a living ancient language had evolved into something far more profound, becoming part of that language's future. Asterisk wind speaker. Asterisk. Lyra murmured as we soared through the clouds afterward, her powerful wings carrying us both effortlessly. Asterisk my claimed one and claimant both. Asterisk. Forever. I agreed, no longer afraid of the open sky or the journey ahead. In this world and any other, below us, Skyold gleamed in the morning light, its spires and terraces bustling with the unprecedented sight of human and Aryan delegates working together. Above us stretched the endless blue that had once separated our worlds, but now united them. In between, held securely in the embrace of the winged Beastwoman who had carried me off mid-sentence and into a new life, I found my true place at last.